They use their powers to stop crimes and protect people. That's why people call them the superheroes. In an interview, superheroes like Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, and Frozone are being questioned about their secret identity. Their answers have one thing in common: aside from saving the world, they also want to have a peaceful private life. One day, Mr. Incredible, also known as Robert Bob Pear, hears on the radio about a car chase. Clicking a secret button on the radio, his car switches to autopilot mode and he changes into his costume. As his car transforms into his supercar named Incredible, he speeds his way to catch the criminals. But he is stopped on the way by an elderly woman who asks Bob to help her with her cat. Bob uproots the tree to shake the cat down. Then, he uses that tree to smash the criminal's getaway car. Hearing that another crime is happening, Bob checks his watch to see if he still has time. When he goes back inside the car, he is shocked to see a kid sitting in the passenger seat. The kid introduces himself as Incrediboy, a self-proclaimed sidekick of Bob. Bob then recognizes the kid as Buddy from his fans club. Having no time to deal with Buddy's fanboying, Bob ejects him out of the car. Afterward, Bob catches up to the criminal on a rooftop. But the criminal is immediately knocked down by Elastigirl. The two superheroes flirt with each other while kind of arguing about who should apprehend the criminal. More crime starts to pop out as Frozone is also chasing criminals escaping via helicopter. Frozone asks Bob why he's not getting ready yet for the event. Bob answers that he's still got time to spare before the event starts. Then, he hears a commotion from below. A man tries to commit suicide by jumping off a skyscraper. Bob tackles him in midair, breaking through one of the windows of the building. However, Bob hears something beeping. When he is searching for where the sound is coming from, a bomb suddenly explodes in his face. It turns out that a supervillain named Bomb Voyage is robbing the place, but Bob is more surprised that Buddy is also present at the place. Buddy shows Bob the rocket boots he invented. Bob orders him to go home and he stands firm that he prefers to work alone. Wanting to prove himself to his idol, Buddy flies out to get the police. But he didn't notice that Bomb Voyage has attached a bomb to his cape. Bob holds onto Buddy's cape until he finally removes the bomb. Unfortunately, he and the bomb land on a track. As the bomb destroys the track, Bob uses his super strength to stop the train from falling. Afterward, Bob asks the cops to take Buddy home. When an alarm goes off from his watch, Bob promises to catch Bomb Voyage some other time. Then, he immediately drives to a church. It's his wedding night. Bob is marrying Helen Truax, who is the superhero Elastigirl that appeared earlier. Their wedding is attended by Lucius Best, their very close friend who also goes by the name Frozone, and other superhero friends. The scene then changes to a news report that Bob is being sued by Oliver Sansweet, the suicidal man he saved. 5 days later, the passenger from the train he caught that same night also filed another suit against Bob. And in the series of unfortunate events, other superheroes are being sued all over the world. Due to this, the government initiates the Superhero Relocation Program. In exchange for acquitting them of their lawsuits, they are forbidden to do superhero work anymore. 15 years later, Bob works as a claim adjuster and he's not happy about it. He also gets scolded by his supervisor for doing his job right. According to the supervisor, he shouldn't give people the insurance they deserve. Meanwhile, Helen is called into the principal's office because a teacher is complaining about her son, Dash's behavior. But the teacher cannot provide proper evidence, even with his video recorder, so the principal lets Helen and Dash go. In the car, Helen talks to his son about his behavior. Dash promises his mother that he will be better if she lets him join track and field. But knowing Dash's superpower and attitude, Helen cannot let him join. Then, they pick up Violet, the eldest child in the family, who has a crush on a famous guy in her school named Tony. At the dinner table, Helen tells Bob about Dash's situation at school. But instead of getting angry, he gets happy knowing that Dash can now run faster than before. Meanwhile, Violet is not touching her food. Dash teases her about Tony and they start fighting. Shortly after, Bob reads in the newspaper that the superhero Gazerbeam is missing. Afterward, Lucius picks up Bob for their usual bowling night. But as it turns out, bowling night is actually Bob and Lucius doing vigilant stuff. On the other side of the street, a woman is watching them while reporting to someone on the phone. Hearing the news about a nearby fire, Bob and Lucius set out to help. The two try to save the civilians trapped in the fire, but they end up barging into a jewelry store. Because they are wearing masks, the cops think that they're robbers. Luckily, they manage to escape without getting caught. But they still don't notice the woman watching them. At home, Helen confronts him for doing vigilant work. She is not happy that Bob is putting their family in jeopardy because of his addiction to being a superhero. The next day, Bob's supervisor scolds him for helping customers to know the loophole in their insurance policy. Having enough of his supervisor's unjust attitude, Bob loses his cool. He throws the supervisor outside of the office, badly injuring him. Agent Rick Dicker, a government agent, helps Bob get out of trouble. At home, Bob notices an envelope when he is emptying his briefcase. Inside is a tablet that scans his face and the whole room. The woman from earlier, who introduces herself as Mirage, appears on the screen. Mirage says that she's part of a secret government organization. She offers Bob a secret mission to shut down a robot called Omnidroid on an island named Nomanisan. If he accepts the offer, he will be paid triple his current salary. Seeing a chance to relive his glory days, Bob accepts the offer. He then tells Helen that he will be going out of town for a company conference, lying about the secret mission given to him. The scene changes to Mirage briefing Bob about the Omnidroid. According to Mirage, Omnidroid's AI system gets too intelligent and starts to rebel against them. His mission is to shut it down without destroying it. Afterward, they airdrop Bob to the island. After searching for the robot for a long time, he finally comes face to face with it. As stated, it's a learning robot, so Bob has a hard time fighting it. But he still manages to defeat it by entering the robot, causing the Omnidroid to attack itself while trying to reach him. He doesn't know that he is being watched by Mirage and a mysterious man. The man is impressed with Bob. At dinner, Bob asks who his employer is, but Mirage says that her boss likes to stay anonymous. After that, Bob gets home and spends his time happily with his family. Their life is getting better, thanks to his work for Mirage and her boss. Bob also starts training again to regain his shape. The scene changes to Bob going to the place of Edna Mode, also known as E. E is the designer and creator of the super suits for superheroes. Bob initially just wants to repair his suit, but E says he needs a new one. After thinking about it, Bob says he wants a cape. However, E enumerates all the horrible things that happen to all the superheroes that have capes. In the end, E settles for a new costume without a cape, and she will also fix Bob's old suit. Later that day, when Helen is fixing Bob's closet, a phone suddenly rings and Bob immediately tells Helen that he will answer it. But Helen also picks up the phone and listens to Bob's conversation with Mirage. The part of the conversation she hears sounds like Bob is having an affair. Helen tries to confront him, but Bob says he's just going to another conference. Gearing up in his new red suit, Bob goes back to Nomanisan. Meanwhile, Helen notices the patch on Bob's old suit when she is cleaning the house. She then calls E to ask about it. E then orders Helen to go to her place immediately. Going back to Bob, he goes to the conference room where he is supposed to be briefed for his next mission. Suddenly, another Omnidroid attacks him, but this Omnidroid is bigger and better than the previous one he encountered. A man also shows up and reveals himself to be Syndrome, previously known as Buddy. After the incident 15 years ago, Buddy scrapped the idea of being Bob's sidekick. Carrying hatred against his old idol, Buddy turns into a villain named Syndrome. He becomes a genius inventor that creates the Omnidroids. He also created a technology called zero-point energy that allows him to immobilize someone's movements by shooting a laser at them. Buddy uses it to thrash Bob around. Bob tries to escape by jumping off the falls, but Buddy drops a bomb in the water, causing Bob to be splashed out on a cave. There, he discovers Gazerbeam's corpse. Following where the corpse is looking, Bob reads the word Kronos. He then hides behind the corpse as a scanner enters the cave. Unable to scan him, the device returns to Buddy, reporting that Bob is already terminated. Meanwhile, E shows Helen the super suits she made for her and her children. E demonstrates all the technologies and features that each costume has. Helen is surprised that E is helping Bob in his secret superhero endeavor. But E thought Helen knew about it, so she made suits for the pars. Later that night, Bob sneaks into Buddy's facility. He goes to the control room and uses Kronos as a password to the system. Bob discovers that Buddy has killed many superheroes using different Omnidroids. Searching for his wife and Lucius, he's relieved to know that Helen's location is still unknown. But he gets worried because his friend's location is already known. Then, he finds out that Buddy plans to send the Omnidroid to the city in about 8 hours. Helen, on the other hand, also discovers that Bob is no longer working for the insurance company for about 2 months. E gives Helen the device that can locate Bob. It turns out that all of the pair suits have built-in trackers. However, as soon as Helen opens the tracking device, Bob's suit starts beeping, activating the security system of the place. At home, Helen is packing her things when Violet and Dash see the super suit made for them. Dash quickly tries his suit on and hands over Violet's suit to her. Helen then shoves them out of the room and calls a friend for a ride. The scene changes back to Bob, who's now captured by Buddy. Buddy asks who did he call for help because he discovered that Bob had sent his location. But Bob has no idea about it. Mirage plays the recording of Helen asking permission to land on the island. Bob immediately realizes that it's his wife's voice. Meanwhile, on the plane, Helen discovers that Violet and Dash hitch a ride without her permission. Asked about Jack, the youngest son in the family, Violet and Dash say they got a babysitter for him. At this time, Buddy sends missiles at them. With no other options, Helen orders Violet to put a force field around the plane. But Violet has never created such a big force field before. As the missiles hit the plane, Helen inflates and covers her children to protect them until they safely land on the ocean. Back in the facility, Mirage sounds to feel bad about the kids as she reports to Buddy that the target is already destroyed. Buddy then mocks Bob, saying that he will move on because he is used to working alone. Bob grabs Mirage and threatens Buddy that he will crush her, but the villain just dares the superhero to do it. Not being able to kill a defenseless woman, Bob releases Mirage. At the same time on the ocean, Helen turns herself into a boat. Violet rides her back and Dash uses his speed to propel them to the island. It's already night when they reach the island, so they take shelter in a cave. Helen decides to look for Bob, leaving the two kids in the cave. She reminds them that if the situation requires it, they should use their power. Meanwhile, the rocket where the Omnidroid is located is being prepared for takeoff. At this time, Helen manages to sneak inside the facility and seize the rocket. She also takes out some guards on her way. Back in the cave, Violet is trying to practice her superpowers when Dash goes out to look around the cave. As Buddy launches the rocket, the blast goes through the cave where the kids are. Luckily, Dash sees the connecting passage in the cave and runs as fast as he can to save Violet. When the sun rises, one of the robotic birds that serve as the surveillance camera on the island spots Violet and Dash. It quickly alerts the control room and the guards immediately go after them. On the other side of the facility, Mirage frees Bob, but he grabs Mirage's neck, angry about his family's death. Mirage reveals to him that his family survived and is currently on the island. Bob hugs Mirage in happiness, not knowing that Helen is watching them. Helen misreads the situation and punches Mirage, thinking that Bob is cheating on her. Bob pulls Helen for a kiss and explains that it is just a misunderstanding. When asked about the kids, Mirage says that their kids might have triggered the alarm. Bob and Helen immediately go their way to find her kids. In the jungle, the kids get cornered. Violet turns invisible while Dash runs as fast as he can to escape. As he outruns the guards, he manages to take out some of them. Dash also discovers that he can run on water as long as he's going fast enough. While looking for their kids, Bob apologizes to Helen for everything he lied about. Violet, on the other hand, is struggling to fight a soldier. Luckily, Dash helps her out, but the soldier manages to get a clear shot at Dash. Violet then jumps in the way, creating a force field to protect her brother. Dash uses the force field as a rolling ball and runs through the jungle until they run into Bob and Helen. Together, they fight the guards chasing them, but their fun is cut short when Buddy arrives and immobilizes them. Afterward, he takes them back to the facility, making them watch the news about the aircraft where the Omnidroid is. It has already landed in the city. Buddy plans to release the robot to wreak havoc in the city. Then, he will arrive to beat the robot, portraying himself as the best superhero. The Omnidroid has been activated and the family watches the robot destroying the military. Feeling guilty, Bob apologizes to his family for putting them in danger, not noticing that Violet has already gotten out of restraint. She then frees her family and they go after Buddy altogether. Mirage sees them on the security camera and helps them use the rocket to get back to the mainland. Meanwhile, Lucius sees the Omnidroid and quickly asks for his super suit. As the Omnidroid thrashes the city, Buddy arrives and pretends to save the day. But as stated earlier, Omnidroid is a learning machine. The robot sees that Buddy's armband is the remote control. So the Omnidroid shoots it and Buddy immediately flies away. The family then arrives in the city. Bob wants to face the robot alone, afraid that he might lose Helen. But his wife says that they should beat the robot together. The Omnidroid suddenly attacks the kids. Luckily, Violet shields herself and her brother, but she faints as the robot crashes her barrier. Bob attacks the robot while Helen helps the kids get away. After ensuring the safety of Violet and Dash, Bob and Helen engage in battle with the Omnidroid. Lucius also arrives to help them. Bob sees Buddy's armband and picks it up, but the robot immediately attacks him. Dash shouts to his father to throw it, and he quickly runs to catch it. The superheroes work together to prevent the Omnidroid from destroying the remote. Then Violet gets a hand on the remote, but they can't find the right key to shut it down. Bob remembers the time when he beat the old Omnidroid before. He then picks up its claw and uses it as a bullet to penetrate the robot's main machine inside its body. As they defeat the robot, the civilians cheer for the superheroes. Buddy witnesses it and gets angry. Afterward, Agent Dicker tells them that the government has already frozen all of Buddy's assets. While Bob, Violet, and Dash talk about their adventure, Helen is listening to the voicemails from the babysitter. Although the babysitter assures Jack is fine, she says that something weird is happening to him. The last voicemail is about the babysitter thanking them for sending a replacement, but they didn't send one. Realizing that Jack is in danger, they immediately go inside the house. To their surprise, Buddy is holding the baby and he quickly immobilizes the family. Buddy plans to kidnap Jack to make him his sidekick. But as they fly to Buddy's jet, Jack starts to morph into different forms and attacks him. When Jack destroys one of his rocket boots, Buddy has to let go of him. Seeing this, Bob throws Helen to catch Jack. Buddy swears to return for the baby, but Bob throws his sports car at Buddy's jet. Buddy's cape then is caught up in the jet's turbine and causes a massive explosion. The debris of the jet falls on the family. Fortunately, Violet manages to create a barrier in time and saves the whole family. 3 months later, the family watches Dash's track race. Tony also sees Violet and asks her out on a date. Then, the family leaves the track and field stadium and they are very proud of Dash winning second place. All of a sudden, a supervillain named Underminer attacks the city. The movie ends with the family wearing their superhero masks,